Hello YouTube, Sidekick here in my trusty F-15E Strike Eagle. Today we're out doing a bit of a training mission, and I'm going to try and look at using the Wizzo position a little bit. Of course, having the backseat position is really the big thing that the Mud Hen brings to the party that you don't get from any of the other modern jets like the 16 or the 18. So I wanted to try a mission to maybe look at some of the things that are more easily done from the Wizzo position. We're going to do a few different things, so let's get things started. First of all, I want to note that I am flying this mission in single player. I think that the same mission would be a hoot in multiplayer because there are some points in the mission where it would actually be useful to have one person flying the plane and another person flying the sensors. You'll see what I mean when we get there. So I am looking forward to trying this out in multi-crew, but for this video, this was all done in single player. So here's the basic plan. We're going to start out and use the bombing range near Cobaletta. You can see it here on the screen. Here are the things that I actually want to try and practice. I want to try and do radar reconnaissance and target acquisition. I want to use a mark point. Try using mark points because we're going to use that for sort of rapid target cycling. I want to use the radar to designate the target, but then I want to cue the T-pod from it. And once we're all set up like that, I want to go back out and I want to do low-level ingress and a straight pop-up for a GBU attack on a pre-designated target, in this case a building, and we'll use a GBU-10 for that. Then I want to do the same thing this time, except I want to do kind of a dynamic target selection. So when we pop up, we won't be on the right target. We'll actually have to select the target during the pop-up. And again, we'll pick another building because they're easy to see, and we'll use a GBU-10 for that. Then I want to practice actually cycling to a new target location using the mark point, so while we're actually egressing. And then I want to come back and do a low-level ingress and pop up from the side, so using a roll-in attack with the GBU-12s, and this time on a vehicle. And then I want to do another rapid target reacquisition with the T-pod, and then do that again. So that's all that's on the list for today. Let's go out and give it a try. Okay, here we are in the cockpit, just getting set up. We're in the front cockpit. I'm just going to get myself into autopilot mode. And then we are going to hop in the back. That looks good. Let's hop in the back. Okay, in the back cockpit now, I'm going to set things up in a particular way. By the way, I did a video on how to set up the controls in the Wizzo seat. You might want to go take a look at that if you haven't tried this. So we're going to end up with the air-to-ground radar here on the first right-hand screen. I'm going to put the T-pod over on the color screen on the right. And then I'm going to put my HUD here on the first screen on the left. So I like doing it this way, at least in DCS. I know this might not be the standard way to set it up, but in DCS I like it because it means that only the right-hand screens will need me to be moving a cursor around, which just because of the way the setup is done, that makes it a little bit easier. You'll see what I mean as we get out there. So we're just... Now, I can fly the airplane from back here, so that's what I'm doing, and you can use the HUD. That's why I like having the HUD on the left-hand screen there. As always, when using the radar in patch mapping mode, you need to get the target area off to just to the right of the track of the aircraft, 15 degrees or so. You also have to wait until it's within range, which it just barely is now. So, we're going to get our first radar patch map here. So, the way the Wizzo cockpit is set up in my setup is I'm actually using my joystick as the TDC controller. Again, you could go take a look at that video to figure out how that's done. It really works really well. You can see you get really fine control over the cursor, which is something that you really don't usually. So that's particularly why I like using the back seat. I got a much bigger screen, and I have the ability to control the cursor much more finely because of the way the controls are set up, and that's part of the reason why I like doing this from the back seat. So we're zeroing in on the range here, so I'm just gonna zoom in there. So remember, the order, the sort of the sequence of targets is we're going to take on those buildings with the GBU-10s, and they're easy to see, and then we're going to take on some of the vehicles which are over in this area, but they're a little bit harder to see. Can't zoom in just yet. So maybe what I'll do is I'll go back down here, drop a mark point so I don't lose it when I zoom in. This is the thing about using the back seat. It's a lot easier to switch between things like Q and mark and target, and it's also easier to set the zoom levels because it's all done with the castle switch. So let's go back over here and actually zoom in. One thing to remember in the back seat is that the TDC action button isn't really the thing that you use. It's the trigger on the stick, which actually makes it a little bit easier as well. So we can zoom in one more time here, and you can see it's pretty easy to reposition this window pretty sensitively, which is not a feature of using the TDC controller I use in the front seat, because it's a tiny little joystick. So let's get zoomed right in. Let's pick these vehicles as the target we're going to use for the vehicles. So we're going to drop a mark point on there. And then just to do a little bit more mark point madness here, we're going to select mark point 0. We're going to select it as our steering point. And we're going to prove that we can actually cue the T-pod to that without the radar being on it, just to show how that works. Okay, so the T-pod is now cued to our original mark point, which is going to become our target point, I will point out. Now we just have to go back over and find that mark point again on the radar. So I'm going to move over here and get another patch map. There's the mark point, so we're going to zoom in on that. While it's zooming in, I'm going to go over to the stores page, put that on the, replace the HUD with that, and start getting ready to program our weapons. I'm a good wizzo, probably should have done that before now. Now we are zoomed in, so we can go back over and actually get ready to designate that target. So there, target is designated. We can tell the front seater that we have designated a target. In fact, if he wanted the radar back, he could have it. And at this point, we're just going to go in and make sure that we have our program for both our GBU 12s and our GBU 10s set up. And with that, I think we are ready to hand control back to the front seat. Okay, here we are back in the pilot seat. Now you can see the left-hand screen has the air-to-air radar, but it's not functioning because I still have the air-to-ground up in the back seat. And if we were playing multi-crew, I'd probably ask for that back. Oops, I got a master caution because I didn't cancel the autopilot. So you'll remember that the plan of attack now is we're going to go back down, turn back south, put some distance between us and the target, and then we're going to come in on the target, straight in, pop up, and acquire the target as we pop up high enough to see it. Now, here's where the backseater would be coming into play, because the backseater would be giving the pilot directions about where he needs to fly in order to approach from the right direction. You can see the T-pod is cued to the target. So I'm going to put the map up in the front cockpit, although I think if we were flying multi-crew, I'd probably still have functioning air-to-air radar up on that left screen, and the backseater would be watching the map in the back seat and giving the front seat directions about how to approach the target. For what it's worth, we want to approach the target basically somewhere between 350 and 0 degrees. So we're going to go out here a ways until we have some distance between us and the target. And then the Wizzo in the back is going to help us shape our course around so that we finally roll in on our attack vector when it's about, between 350 degrees and 0 degrees. So we're just slowly moving around and also reducing altitude. So let's just roll the tape forward until we're getting close to being ready to turn in on the target. Okay, here we are headed in towards the coast. I'm just keeping an eye on the bearing to target number there. And once it gets down to around 0, we're probably going to start to turn in. We're about 16, 17 nautical miles from the target. And we're going to aim to turn in and roll out. We'll start the roll in now. Start coming around. We want to bring that out somewhere between 350 and 0. Just pull it around and wait until we get lined up on the target line. It comes in, there's the target, there's the line. Let's get down a little bit more, probably take our speed up a little bit. Lots of time to line up. We're going to pull up at around 5.3. And a bunch of things are going to happen when we pull up. We're going to pull up to around 30 degrees. The bomb's going to come off. And then we're going to have to start watching the T-pod. Now, this is where it would really be good to have a second crew member, because the pilot is going to want to make sure that the T-pod doesn't mask, while the Wizzo really wants to make sure that the T-pod stays on the target. So it gets to be a fair bit of work with one person. It would be a lot easier with two. Here we go, 7 nautical miles, count down to around 5.5. Pull. There's the release line. Pickle and hold. Bomb is gone. Start watching the teapot. We're going to roll to the right. So the pilot's watching that little open square, trying to keep it off to the left because the teapot's on the left. But we don't want it to get too far off to the left. We don't really want it to get too far behind us or it'll mask. So now we have to come back around to the left, trying to keep it off the left wing. At the same time, we're trying to keep the cross on the building. So like I said, that would be good if we had 2 people doing both of those things. Then the pilot could probably be a little bit more aggressive because the Wizzo would be focused on the teapot. But that seems to be working pretty well right now. And there we go, shack. Now, we're going to roll back to the south, go down again, and we're going to go back to that line of hills. We're going to go around behind the line of hills and come back. Now, we haven't changed our target, so when we pop up again, the target designator, the cross, is still going to be on the building we just hit. So the next run is going to be a little bit more exciting because after we pop up and release the bomb, then we're going to have to change the aiming point of the laser at the same time as we're keeping the laser from being masked. So like I said, that would be good to have 2 people doing that. You can do it with 1, but I think you'd be a lot more effective if you were doing 2. And that's the kind of thing I think would be kind of fun to try this in multi-group. So we're going to head down through the notch in the ridge here. And then we're going to pull back around to the coast and we're going to start watching that target bearing line again. And when it starts to come back around to around 0 degrees, then we're going to turn in again. And again, this would be the sort of thing where if you had just the pilot could be worrying about flying even closer to the ground than I am, because you had a Wizzo who was calling out the bearing to target. So it would be a good way of dividing the responsibilities. And of course, again, we'd probably have the air-to-air radar up in the front to make sure there was nobody coming to bother us. You can see where there's more than enough for 2 crew members to do if you do it right. So we're staying nice and low, hugging the ground, keeping that ridge between us and the target. And we're just going to keep pulling around here until we get that target bearing line looking like it's coming back around to around 0 degrees. There goes the Kobuleti Airport on the right-hand side. Okay, we're coming up there now. Trending towards 350, so we're going to start our turn in. We're a little bit closer to the target this time. We're going to want to make sure we pull around. We got our nose on the target here. So again, this one's going to be a little bit more exciting pop-up because we're not only going to have to keep the teapot from masking, but we are actually going to have to change targets. And again, that would be a lot easier with 2 people. But we can make it work with 1, though maybe not quite as well. Probably won't. It's going to be harder to fly it as tactically while we're trying to mess with too many things. Anyways, okay, here we are. We're lined up. We're ready for the pull-up. You can see the teapot's in generally the right location. And here we go and pull. Keep pulling, keep pulling, keep pulling. And pickle and hold. And bomb's gone. Okay, we released that at a bit higher altitude. We still have quite a ways until the bomb lands, so we've got lots of time to get ourselves lined up. Watching that square. Okay, we get the target acquired. Backseater would be saying that if he was doing it, and now we're just watching that little open square. We want to keep it off to the left, so we're going to be flying around the target. We're a bit higher than we were the last time because we popped a little higher, so this isn't as tactical situation as maybe we would have liked, but it's still, it's practice. We've got to keep moving around the target, keep it off to the left so we don't mask. It's going to take a while for the bomb to get there. Keep it off to the left and shack. Alright, now comes the little bit of magic where we switch the teapot to our pre-designated mark point. So I'm going to quickly switch to autopilot, go to the back seat. You can do this from the front seat, but this is what the backseater would be doing. So we're going to select Mark 1. Select it as the current nav point. We go back to the front, tell the pilot he can now switch the teapot. Switches the teapot from radar to nav, and now, hey presto, we have the teapot should be lined up on the vehicles. So now we're going to turn around here, going around across the back of the range this time. Wait for the teapot to show us what it can see, and we're going to hope that that is going to be some vehicles. All right, unmasked. Zoom in. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's zoom in again. And that looks like we've got a vehicle. All right, so now what we're going to do is fly out to the coast. We're going to drop down, come around, kind of like we normally do on the range. We're going to come in from the west, and we're going to do a pop-up attack, and then we're going to roll in on that target and use the laser-guided bomb. Okay, now while the pilot is flying that, we go to the backseater. Wizzo is going to be making sure we got the right program for the GBU-12s this time. Back to the front seat. We're losing altitude. Once again, if we had two people in the cockpit, we would probably be flying this a lot more tactically, because it's the only thing the pilot would have to worry about. Okay, and once again, guy in the back is probably taking a look at his map and taking a look at where the target bears, and he's giving the would be giving the pilot the cue to turn in and then the cue to pop up, but we'll just have to do that from reading the numbers ourselves and looking at the map. Okay, let's just keep coming around here until we're going to be more or less parallel to the coast. That's somewhere around 160 degrees. And the altitude nice and low, keeping the speed up reasonably high. Okay, looking pretty good. Just about time to roll out here. We're about parallel with the coast. Now, I know where I am because I fly here all the time. If I didn't, I really would be relying probably on the Wizzo to be looking at the map, because I don't want to be reading a map at this this altitude and this speed. Okay, we're just going to have to work our way a little bit farther north of the target so we can roll in across the front of the range. Now let me just roll the clock forward a little bit. Okay, we're well north of the range now, so we're turning in towards the coast. I'm going to turn in until we have the target just off our nose, maybe 40-50 degrees off the nose, then we're going to pop. And then we're actually going to do like a roll-in attack, as if we were dropping unguided bombs, but obviously we won't have to dive quite as deep. So, looks good. Let's pull up. There probably are parameters that would be actually used to do this, and I'm not following them. If somebody knows what they are, by all means, let me know in the comments. Now I'm just looking over to see where the target is. Looking on the T-pod to see that we have actually acquired a target. That's looking like good altitude, so we're going to roll. We're going to put the lift vector in the general direction of the target until we can actually get target on the HUD. And we're going to keep pulling down towards the target. Roll out. Get lined up on the line. Now we don't need to be as accurate as we would be if we were dropping unguided bombs. So get on the line, and then we'll start to pull up a little bit. And we'll look for a release cue. Don't need to be too accurate in the steering at this point, because we're going to guide the bomb terminally. Here's the release cue. Bomb is gone. We can break away. And once again, we go back to the pilot is flying the little open square to try and keep the T-pod from masking. Guy in the back is actually flying the cursor of the T-pod to try and keep it on the target. If I had two people doing this, I could probably do this a lot more tactically, but I don't think I could score a better hit than that. So that's one vehicle down. Now the next little piece of magic we're going to have to do is, as we go around the back of the range here, let's see if we can actually move the designator to another vehicle and then go do that again with our last bomb. Okay, the T-pod's masked. There it's coming unmasked. We need to start looking at the target. Now we know I know there's some vehicles. If we go sort of up from there, let's see if we can find something that looks good. Quick before we mask again. That looks okay. Now again, this is a little sporty in the front cockpit. If we had multi-crew, I think this would be one of those things that would be a lot easier. Yes, we got a vehicle. We have a vehicle. We're really unmasked. Yes, designate. Okay, time to get low and go around again. So once again, that would be a process that would be quite a bit easier if you had two crew members, and you'd also be able to have the pilot flying this a little bit more tactically. So that would be a good thing to practice if you've got two guys in the cockpit. So we're basically going to go do the same thing again, although this time I'm going to see if I can do a slightly more aggressive pop-up, so get a little closer to the target, spend a little bit less time, get a little less high, but still make use of the laser-guided bomb. So here we go, headed out to the coast. I'll just roll the tape forward until we're getting ready to turn in. Okay, we're turning in. As you can see, we're a little closer to the coast. If you look at the range to target, we're a little closer to the target as well. Get our wings level here. Pull them all the way around. Okay, time to roll out. And we'll get even a little closer to the target, so we'll get all the way over the coast before we pull up. Still going to pull up sharply, but I'm going to try and roll off the top a little bit lower altitude. Won't give us as much time to get lined up on the target, but hopefully we won't need it. Okay, somewhere around there. Looks pretty good. Up we go. Checking the T-pod. T-pod's on the target. Look for the general target area. Roll over. Put the lift vector on it. Pull down towards the target. Look in the HUD. Wait for the target to come on the HUD. Taking time to roll out. Roll it out. Lots of time. Here comes the release line. Pickle and hold. Bomb is gone. Watch the T-pod. This time we're just going to fly straight over the target. Need to make a little bit of an adjustment there. And hopefully before we mask it, we are going to hit the target, and just made it in time. All right. Well, there you go. That's a fairly comprehensive little training mission. Learning how to use some of the controls in the Wizzo spot. Learning how to actually designate targets using the T-pod, using mark points, using the radar. Overall, I kind of enjoyed that. Getting a lot more comfortable with those controls in the F-15. It's not a hard mission to recreate using one of my range files, but I'll probably put the mission up anyways if anybody wants to try it. And by the way, if anybody's looking to try this in multiplayer, I think it would be a lot of fun. Let me know. For now, this is going to be Sidekick, signing off.